dawn and the first light, you wake before the sun rises. Lying upon a simple straw mattress in the quiet of your small cottage. Through the wooden shutters, you see the faint glow of pre-dawn light in the east. The air is still cool and the house feels peaceful. Slowly, you rise from bed and stretch, mindful of the day ahead. A single candle flickers on a low wooden shelf. You reach out and blow it gently out, the smoke curling upward and disappearing into the dark. Outside, a distant rooster crows as if to announce the coming day, and the forest beyond the cottage begins to stir with faint bird calls. You wrap a coarse woven blanket around your shoulders, the wool still carrying yesterday's warmth. The cool air brushes your cheeks as you open the window, and the scent of earth and pine slips in. Somewhere beyond the misty meadow, an owl is settling into the eaves of a barn for the day. A few stars fade as dawn nears, and the sky's edge blushes with pale gold. You step outside into the cool morning, a woven basket in hand and a cloth pouch at your side. The sky is shaded in soft purples and blues as the first light touches the tops of the trees. Each breath you take is crisp, tinged with the scent of dew on oak leaves and pine needles. The earth is damp beneath your feet, and the grass sparkles with dew. You pause to fill your lungs with the quiet sounds of morning, a gentle breeze rustling through tall grasses, the soft chirping of sparrows, and the distant babble of a creek. Your cottage is humble and small, but in the dawn's light it feels sacred. The morning chill fades as you kindle the hearth fire. The first flame flickers and licks the side of a clay pot set atop it. Soon, porridge of oats and herbs simmers slowly, filling the kitchen with a comforting aroma of grain and mint. As you stir the pot, you remember the words of your mother, to heal others. Fill your heart with kindness first. Those words echo quietly in your mind as you add the last pinch of salt to your food. You feel gratitude for each new day. The tasks ahead, though simple, are steeped in meaning and tradition. Before the sun fully rises, you take a final breath of the cool air, ready to begin with a steady heart and a humble spirit. Before leaving your bed, you pause to feel the quiet darkness around you. In the silence, the very walls of your cottage seem alive with memories, the soot on the ceiling from the hearth, the chipped clay jugs passed down, and the lavender bundles hanging over the door. Each object is familiar and comforting in the morning half-light. As you step outside, your bare feet feel the chill of damp grass. The world is still, but not silent. Water drips from clay tiles. A distant church bell chimes softly for early mass, and a gentle breeze makes the wooden sign of your cottage sway. You run a hand along the rough bark of an old oak nearby, greeting the dawn with a small smile. Now that the hearth is lit and your porridge warms, you take a moment by the window. You watch the morning light grow stronger, illuminating every detail of your cottage. The wooden beams seem to glow warmly, and the weaving on your blanket reveals its woven pattern in soft clarity. This is the beauty of a new day, small things revealed. You feel a gentle promise in the air, that today will be filled with gentle purpose. For now, you simply stand in silence, listening to the morning and waiting for its full arrival. Early morning, gathering herbs, wearing a warm wool cloak. You walk slowly to the small herb garden behind the cottage and beyond to the edge of the forest. The morning dew cools the tops of the grasses and each herb leaf glistens like tiny jewels as the sun peeks through the treetops. You pause by a patch of thyme and gently crush a leaf between your fingers, releasing its peppery, sharp scent into the morning air. It reminds you of hearth fires and warm soups. Nearby, mint leaves release a cool menthol aroma as you gently rub them between your hands. In the garden, you find rows of chamomile, lemon balm, and thyme. You bend to pick the blossoms of chamomile, handling them carefully so as not to bruise the delicate petals. The scent is sweet and apple-like as you crush a few between your fingers. Birdsong rises in a gentle chorus as the light strengthens. The bluebells in the underbrush are still folded up for the night, but the bright-faced marigolds in your garden greet the dawn with opened petals. You kneel to cup a handful of chamomile blooms. Under your fingertips. They are velvety soft. You inhale, letting their apple-like sweetness mingle with the crisp forest air. Elderflowers nod in the morning light and you harvest a small cluster, knowing they will brew into a gentle elderflower tea to soothe a feverish child. Each herb has its purpose in healing: yarrow for wounds, rosemary for memory and comfort, mint for upset stomachs, and sage to calm fever. You remember that certain herbs are stronger if gathered when dew is present. The knowledge of the best times for each plant is a treasure passed down to you. You pause to feel gratitude for these teachings as you continue along the path, further into the woods. You gather wild thyme and rosemary peeking between ferns. At the edge of the forest, a warm patch of sun beckons you. Here the morning glories have opened, and you gather their heavenly scent to calm dreams. You also find mugwort. Its silvery green leaves fragrant and sharp. Having learned from your grandmother, you carefully wrap the leaves in a small cloth. Mugwort will help with restless sleep later. You pull a few dandelion flowers from the ground, thinking how their bitterness in a salad can help purify the blood. Their bright yellow faces are cheerful in the green shadows. Each step you take is deliberate and slow. A rabbit scurries past and pauses, letting you meet its gaze before it darts into the ferns. You sit for a moment, leaning against the old oak tree and listening to its rings in the breeze. Outside of the morning stillness, distant sounds of villagers beginning their day reach your ears: a neighbor heaving a well bucket, a kitten mewing for breakfast. A ladybug crawls across your hand and you pause to whisper a blessing for such small life. Then let it continue on its way. Slowly, you begin the walk home. The forest path is lined with wild mint and nettles. You avoid the nettles but harvest a few stems of mint by pinching the tops of the plants. Their cool menthol scent mingles in the basket with the sweeter scents of lavender and chamomile. Each herb you gather seems to carry a bit of the morning with it. When your basket is full enough, you decide to head home, humming a gentle tune as you walk at an easy pace, listening to the rustle of leaves and bees buzzing around blossoms. Mid-morning, preparation and storage. Back in the cottage, a warm fire burns quietly in the hearth. You shake out a linen cloth and set the basket of herbs on a rough-hewn oak table. The morning sun now streams through the small window, lighting up the dust motes that float in the air. You carefully sort the herbs by type. Some must be dried on wooden racks. You tie bunches of chamomile and elderflowers by their stems and hang them near the thatched roof where the air is warm and dry. You know the importance of slow, gentle drying to preserve the healing essence. Each herb you lift from the basket is vibrant with color: purples, greens, yellows, and whites. You label each jar with a single sketched symbol: a sun for chamomile, a spiral for rosemary, a triangle for mint. Linen bags and earthen bowls are laid out. You fill some of the bowls with salt and dried herbs to make a simple poultice. Finger by finger, you crush dried plantain leaves, thinking of how they were traditionally used for bites and stings. The leaves feel papery against your skin, and a dry, almost sweet vegetal aroma rises. If a neighbor comes in with a bee sting, these will soothe the swelling and itch. Other herbs you prepare immediately. You grind a handful of rosemary and thyme in a heavy stone mortar and pestle. The rhythmic grinding sounds steady and calming. Your hands smell of resinous pine and earth as the leaves break down into a coarse powder. These powders will be stored in clay jars with lids made of wood or leather. The mortar and pestle are heavy and worn, each mark on them a testament to years of use. With each grind, the fragrance grows stronger. You think of patience and slow rhythms. The grinding is like a meditation. Tiny flecks of green and gold fall into the stone bowl. You transfer these into small clay pots. Then smear the lid with a bit of beeswax to seal it. The cottage itself fills with a mild symphony of scents: honey, dried pine, fresh mint. It is quiet but alive with preparation and promise. Water boils for tea. You carefully pour from the kettle into a wooden cup, which you then pass to a patient from yesterday sitting quietly at the table. His hand trembles slightly as he takes the cup and breathes in the fragrant steam. Comforting another provides the same healing warmth to your own heart as it does to his body. On a shelf, you place new jars and wooden bowls. You pour the herbal powders into the vessels, closing them gently, sealing in their aroma. For mint and lemon balm, you bring a cast iron kettle to the fire and simmer the leaves into a dark, fragrant herbal tea. The sweet steam fills the room. You strain the liquid slowly into a wooden jug for later use. The last of the dried lavender blossoms you slip into a small linen pillow, stitching it closed. That pillow will help soothe coughs and bring restful sleep. You step back to survey your work, hands resting on hips, and smile. The morning's labor feels good in your tired arms. For now, everything is in place, herbs sorted, jars sealed, and a pot of fresh water simmering for the next steps. By now a few clouds drift across the sky, and though it is still warm, a comfortable shade falls over the cottage. You move closer to the hearth to carve fresh dandelion roots you found. Each root is cleaned and slit, revealing a pale yellow inside. You crush them with the mortar to extract their earthy flavor. A gentle chirrup announces a sparrow perched on the windowsill, watching you curiously. You pause to break off a small piece of bread and place it near the bird. A morning offering. It pecks at the crumb gratefully before fluttering away. Acts like this remind you that even small kindnesses feed the spirit. The world outside is at a hush. You feel the center of calm in your cottage. You step back to survey your work, smile, and finally prepare to leave for the market as the morning's work is well done. Noon and market, a gentle trade. By late morning, the sky is high and pale blue. The air has warmed, so you peel back your cloak and tie your hair away from your neck. Down the dirt path you walk, basket on your arm. The road to town is familiar, the sound of wooden wheels on the path as an early merchant passes. A babbling brook crossing your way, and cows grazing in pastures. Neighbors in the fields nod their greetings as you pass with a gentle smile. When you walk into the market, the sounds and smells are mild and rhythmic. A man hums a lullaby to calm his restless child as they thread through the crowd. The aroma of freshly baked bread from the baker's oven mixes with the scent of the earthy mushrooms on the traveling merchant's stand. You stand quietly for a moment, taking it all in. You are part of this natural flow now, not a stranger. The familiarity of these scenes anchors you as much as the herbs in your basket. Arriving at the village market, you find it quiet but active. Stalls of cloth, wood, and pottery line the square, and small groups of villagers chat softly among them. Your stall is made of rough wood and under a cloth canopy. The woven baskets you use are familiar and reliable. The morning sunlight filters through the canopy, casting checkered shadows on the cobblestones. Your own reflection shimmers on a copper bowl you brought for display. Bundles of mint tied with green ribbon and small pouches of dried tea mix lie waiting. You offer your latest batch of herbal salves and teas to a kindly woman selling eggs, proposing a trade. She admires the marigold salve in your hands. You offer one for a few eggs and a wedge of cheese. She appreciates both the remedy and the artful yellow flower pressed into the ointment. The butter-soft pale children wander at her side, tugging at her skirts, sipping the last of their porridge. You exchange a small jar of marigold salve for a basket of fresh eggs and a piece of cheese. The market vendor thanks you and wraps the salve in a piece of linen. A spice merchant with a small wooden box shows you cinnamon sticks and dried herbs from far across the sea. His table is fragrant with exotic aromas, cardamom, bay leaves, and dried lavender from beyond the river. You converse softly about their uses in healing teas, and he offers a small bag of frankincense in exchange for a pouch of your dried lavender. One of your neighbors walks by with her little granddaughter. The child tugs on her sleeve to look at your colorful herbs. You smile and let the girl hold a small bundle of lavender, cautioning her gently to sniff it but not disturb it too much. Her eyes widen at the smell. She closes them and smiles. Your heart warms at the simplicity of this moment. Later, You check the small pockets of coins you earned from the trade. They will help you buy more cloth for your tools or perhaps a new mortar and pestle in the coming weeks. You remember the careful nature of barter in your village. Goods and goodwill flow together. As you prepare to leave the market, a light breeze stirs the colorful banners over the stalls. You buy a warm apple for a penny and sit on a low stone to eat it. Its sweet, tart flavor is a simple pleasure in the gentle bustle. A little boy passes with his mother and smiles shyly at you. You smile back. You pat his head gently, the delicate strands of his hair brushing your palm. A dog lies sleeping under a table where villagers have gathered, its tail thumping softly at a child's foot. The tail wag almost lulls a passing vendor. And even a moment of quiet seems a blessing here. When the villagers see your satchel of remedies, they approach with modest needs. You gently advise a young woman on using basil tea for her mild headache, all while offering a kind smile. Each small bit of advice costs you no rush. A vendor nearby offers you a taste of honey mead, sweet and floral, to quench your thirst. You thank him and raise the small wooden cup. Even the simplest kindness from a stranger feels like a balm today. By the time you gather your small purchases, eggs, cheese, a pouch of spices, and warm bread, the sun is directly overhead. Satisfied with the morning's trade, you give a final wave to the villagers and head back along the lane toward home. The day feels full of kind energies and quiet contentment. You observe the interplay of light and shadow as the wooden shutters of the market stands move with the wind. It casts a pattern like the pages of a book over your own hands. Under that shifting light, you count each coin you have earned thus far, smiling at the modest sum. These coins might buy another foot of linen, a necessity for bandages. The pathway home feels welcoming now. A short rest away, you slip one more herbal candy of honey and lemon into your mouth as you walk, its sweetness rounding out the day's simple meal. Midday, a quiet repast. In the gentle heat of midday, you stop under an old apple tree and set down your basket. The cooling shade and birds chirping above provide a restful place to pause. You break your fresh bread and cheese, tasting once salted wheat, and wash it down with cool spring water. The meal is simple, but you savor each bite, noticing the relief of the bread's warmth and the cheese's tang against your tongue. Nearby, a few bees hum lazily around a clover blossom. You watch them for a moment, drinking in the scene. Life continues in quiet rhythms even here. The bees gently fan their wings. Villagers speak in the distance, and the heat of the sun rises. A ripe apple drops from the tree and you catch it as it nudges your hand. Sweet and crisp, it reminds you of homemade cider on cold mornings. As you eat, you let your thoughts wander to the people you know and the herbs that will aid them. A small bright red ladybug lands on your hand, reminding you of an old saying, that each insect is a star with a life of its own. You smile, admiring its little spot and the way it fits like a charm in your palm. You lean back against the tree's trunk, feeling its rough bark and the solid earth below. The air carries the scents of the herbs in your basket. You close your eyes as a warm breeze blows through the leaves. You think of the afternoon ahead, who might need your help, or what herbs you might need to fetch. In this pause, you give thanks for nourishment, for peace, and for the people you serve. The leaves rustle overhead as if in agreement. After your meal, you wander slowly back through the orchard. The afternoon sun has warmed the stones on the ground, radiating comfortable heat. You pluck a ripe grape from a low vine to snack on, its sweetness a small reward. In the garden, you stop by a drying basin with onion skins from last night's soup. You recall their old use in poultices. Bits of silk squares you dyed with plant juice lie in the basin, drying for future use. Watching them flutter on the line, you think of how each part of your day weaves into the next. Refreshed, you rinse your mouth and head back home. Each step feels measured and content, as if walking meditatively. You settle into the afternoon work slowly, carrying this sense of peace with you. Early afternoon, turning the pages, Returning from your short midday rest, you notice a warm glow to the west as the day gently shifts. You slide into a wooden chair and open your precious herbal compendium. Its leather cover creased with age. The pages, thin and yellowed, reveal delicate drawings of plants and handwritten notes. The air is fragrant with the smell of aged parchment and herb dust. A light breeze rattles the window pane, adding a page-turning whimsy to the silence. You study an illustration of yarrow, recalling how its little flowers can staunch bleeding. You gently trace your finger over the faded ink, feeling connected to the craftsman who wrote these words centuries ago. For a moment, you lose yourself in the beautiful swirl of Latin script and your own scribbled translation. Each word teaches something: how to measure a poultice, or what astrological sign to check for vitality. The knowledge of long ago healers dances in your mind as you read. You come across an entry for an herbal elixir that can ease restlessness, made of rose petals and chamomile. You mark the recipe with a scrap of paper to remember later. Time passes gently with the turning of a leaf. Birds chirp beyond the window, mingling with the crinkle of parchment. You read a sentence that mentions Saint Hildegard of Bingen, a revered healer, and you feel a quiet kinship with this tradition. The afternoon air outside grows warm and still, and you relish the peace as you sit still with these ancient pages. One illustration catches your eye: golden chamomile flowers basking in sun. You recall that story from the text that suggests chamomile tea be offered to those troubled by nightmares. You gently place the compendium back on the shelf, patting its binding affectionately as if thanking it, even if you did not find exactly what you needed today. Holding it reminds you of tradition and the gentle care passed down over generations. The owl perched in the rafters hoots once as you close the book. Even it seems to acknowledge the wisdom contained within. Your mind feels renewed by the study. You look up and see the trees outside, their leaves whispering with the late afternoon breeze. You think of taking some of these leaves to dry for tea tonight. Afternoon, caring for the unwell. The midday sun now bathes the village in warm light. Back at the cottage door stands another visitor, a farmer from the next field carrying a splintered wooden cart and a bandaged arm. He winces as he lifts the wounded limb. You invite him inside without delay, gesturing to the bench and placing a tin basin for the splintered wooden pieces. A warm light from the open door spills into the room. He explains quietly that the cartwheel fell against his arm, leaving a shallow wound. He has already wrapped a cloth around it, but inflammation has set in. You nod in understanding, sensing his discomfort but also relief at having arrived at your cottage. You pour warm water into the basin and gently pour it over the man's bandaged arm. The warmth relaxes the swelling as you carefully unwrap the cloth. With a gentle touch, you search for any pieces of wood. Using a pair of small iron tweezers, you coax out the last splinter. Though the man flinches, you speak softly with each movement, ensuring him it will soon be over. Next, you take a poultice made of plantain and yarrow to press on the wound. The concoction is cool from the spring water you added earlier. You apply it thickly, feeling the cool moisture on the man's skin, and then wrap a fresh linen cloth around his arm. You instruct him to change the dressing tomorrow, knowing the herbs will help draw out any remaining irritation. He sits for a moment catching his breath, the fear in his eyes softening. You offer him a mug of mint tea and he accepts. Sipping slowly, the mint's gentle warmth goes down smooth, and the man closes his eyes appreciatively. With a nod of gratitude, he rises to leave, promising to send over some fresh eggs if his cart is fixed. This quiet promise feels like more payment than any coin he might have offered. After the farmer leaves, you tend once more to your own wounds. A small gash from chopping wood earlier that morning. You run fresh water over it and wrap it in clean linen. A silent reminder that even healers sometimes need care. The baby's mother from earlier sends you a bowl of chicken soup, filled with tender vegetables and rosemary. It steamingly fills your cottage with a soothing aroma. You accept it gratefully, having felt warmth extend to you through such generosity. You sip it while seated by the cradle, Each breath of its rosemary-scented steam brings comfort. In the quiet that follows, you sweep a soft cloth across the wooden floor, hearing tiny particles of dust vanish. It feels good to bring order and cleanliness to your space. A few sunbeams lie on the floor through the curtained window, and you run your hands along the floorboards, feeling gratitude for the sturdy wood underfoot. You step outside again as a golden haze covers the fields. The afternoon sky is vast and empty, a promise of rest soon to come. The cool evening feels near, but for now the warmth of the day lingers. It touches your skin like a memory of summer. A cool breeze carries the promise of evening. You close your eyes and tilt your face to the sky, giving thanks to the sun for its light and the moon soon to come for its rest. It is late afternoon. The day has been long and full, and a soft weariness tinges your limbs in a comforting way. You reflect on how each remedy and word could help not just bodies, but minds too. Even simple kindness, a bowl of soup, a warm tea, a gentle touch, can heal invisible pains. You feel lucky to give these as freely as you give herbs. Late afternoon, rituals and tidying. Back in the kitchen, you boil some thin vegetable soup for your own dinner. Carrots and parsnips simmer in the broth, lending a sweet earthiness to the air. You stir it gently, dropping in a few basil leaves for flavor, inhaling the aroma of home. The basket of evening apples sits patiently by the door. You take one and bite into the crisp flesh, juice trickling down your chin. The simple flavor of the apple is a fine conclusion to your day's labors. You gather leftover cloths and rinse them in warm water. Some rags you've woven from flax and wool need washing. The liquid runs clear as you wring them out and hang them on the line outside to dry in the fading sunlight. You feel satisfaction seeing the fabric spread out like wings, catching the last rays of day. As you sweep the floor with a rustic twig broom, the fine dust drifts up in the golden light. It twinkles in the beams like the air is full of tiny stars. You find a smooth pebble and deposit it under a broken chair leg to steady it. Small repairs such as these keep the home comfortable. Each simple chore is a mindful moment, your hand brushing away crumbs, the bristles whispering on the floor. The rain has started outside as dusk nears. You step to the low window and watch raindrops gather on leaves, capturing the golden glow of the setting sun. It feels like a gift. The rain washes the day's dust from everything. You close the shutters to keep the warmth inside. In the dim light, you fix one last thing. You braid a bundle of dried sage tied with silk and hang it above the doorway. It is both tool and talisman, used for cleansing and for the pleasant aroma it emits when burned. Each care you take now is a comfort for the coming night. You feel a wholesome tiredness, satisfied and gentle, not overwhelming. Your chores complete. You lean with a quiet sigh against the table. You feel a grateful calm settle in your chest as the world outside darkens. The swallows flit low overhead, embarking on a sunset flight. You smile, thinking of how at peace everything feels when your tasks are done and gratitude fills the heart. You pour yourself a cup of the now cooled herbal tea from the kettle and carry it to the veranda. You take a sip while watching the sky turn gentle pink and orange. The taste is mild, warmed by the remaining ember heat. A final comfort before dinner. In this silence, you pray softly under your breath for those you could not help today, that they too might find comfort. Evening, resting and reflection. As twilight deepens, you draw water from the well and heat it for a simple bath by the hearth. You use a few drops of lavender oil in the water. The warm moisture relaxes your muscles and you sigh softly at the comfort it brings. You feel gratitude for your hands and heart, capable of healing and caring. Dressed in a clean linen shift, you sit at the wooden table to carve a small pattern into a piece of wood, a simple cross of protection to hang in the doorway. The rhythmic work of carving eases your mind. The candlelight dances around the room. You remember the stories from childhood of saints and heroes who healed with both faith and herbs. Your neighbor's kind plate of rye bread and cheese sits nearby. You break off a piece and eat slowly, noting the simple mix of flavors: hearty bread with a hint of sourdough, fresh curds melting on your tongue. Over the meal, you listen to the soft murmur of the rain on the roof. Together you speak of no trouble, the conversation is gentle and comforting. About the way rosemary smells or how the daisies are blooming in the meadows. In the quiet of the evening, the soft crackle of the fire and the steady breath of your companion make the room feel like a warm embrace. After supper, you kneel beside your bed and pull a faded leather-bound herbal book from a shelf. In the gentle gloom of the candle, you read a bit of a recipe for a nighttime tincture, reminding yourself of the old healing words. This quiet moment with ink-smudged pages is restful to your spirit. You reach into a basket and take out a faded quill and some parchment. The ink you use is made from berries and oak galls. Each word you write in your journal is a careful effort. There, by the firelight, you note the day's remedies and the names of those you helped. You find that writing this down feels grounding, like weaving the day into memory. Finally, you dip the quill in ink once more and draw a single protective symbol at the bottom of the page. With a satisfied sigh, you blow out your lamp. The sky is painted with streaks of pink and orange as you sit by the hearth. You sip a small pot of chamomile tea that you brewed, its sweet floral warmth soothing the day's weariness from your bones. Beside you, a cat you heard purring earlier settles onto a woolen rug, curling into a ball. You reach out to stroke its back. Its warmth and rhythmic purring fill you with the same peace you offered to so many today. You listen to the crackling of the fire and feel the warmth travel up your legs. Far in the distance, the last light of the sun glows on a hill. You could linger by the fire for hours, but you remember there are duties still to perform tonight. You lean back against a woven chair. You contemplate the roots of each herb you handled today, green stems, earth clinging to them, and how life cycles in seasons. You whisper a quiet prayer of thanks for guidance, for gentle weather, and for the small strength it takes to heal. After you wash your hands at the basin, you wrap yourself in a warm wool cloak. The flame of the fire flickers on the walls, and your own shadow dances softly in the corners. You breathe deeply and allow yourself to fully sink into the calm of the moment. The cat stirs and settles more deeply into its soft fur. You listen to the crackling of the fire and feel its warmth. Putting down your quill, you stand to extinguish the last candles. You walk slowly through each room, breathing in the evening air. You say softly to the empty kitchen, "Rest well, hearth and home." The phrase is like a gentle goodnight whispered into the walls. With one final glance, you head to bed, leaving everything peaceful behind. The final meal of the day is gentle stew poured into earthenware bowls. You add a final garnish of minced parsley for color and aroma, savoring the earthy scent as you ladle it. In the dim light, you braid a bundle of dried sage tied with silk and hang it above the doorway. It is both tool and talisman, used for cleansing and for the pleasant aroma it emits when burned. Each care you take now is a comfort for the coming night. You feel the fatigue wrap around you. It is satisfied and gentle, not overwhelming. You have given the day your steady care, and now you allow yourself to rest, letting the calm embrace you thoroughly. Outside, the village lights flicker on one by one. You feel a kinship with each home you see in the distance, knowing that, like yours, they are filled with stories, cares, and comforts. This shared life under the evening sky fills you with quiet joy. Night, quiet rituals and sleep. The moon has risen by now, sending a silver light through the window lattice. You extinguish the candle and relight only a small oil lamp. There is a gentle hush in the cottage, broken only by the soft whoosh of the flame and the outside lullaby of evening crickets. The air has turned cool and you slip on a soft woolen shawl. The cat curls at your feet, tail swishing slowly as it dreams. You finish your final task, preparing a small sachet of dried lavender and chamomile to tuck under your pillow for peaceful dreams. You whisper a personal prayer, something you learned long ago, a plea for protection and healing in dreams. Then you climb back into your straw mattress and pull a woolen blanket around you. The worn wood of your cottage breathes with the cool night air. and you listen to its steady settling. Darkness deepens outside. A gentle breeze ruffles the curtains as the night air comes in. You light a single small candle on the bedside table so that the soft glow remains for just a moment longer. Its light catches the contours of your own face in the mirror above the dresser and you give yourself a small nod of approval. You tuck the blankets more snugly around you, feeling every patch and stitch as they settle. The scent of the lavender pillow is now comforting, and your eyes feel heavy from the day's work. You remember a lullaby your mother sang to you as a child. Standing at the doorway, you softly hum its words and gently rock your body. A comforting ritual from your own past. You bless the night, crossing yourself and whispering a plea for peace and rest. Before moving to bed, your mattress awaits, the straw creaking softly as you lie down. You rest your head on a pillow stuffed with lavender and hops. You inhale the scent and feel the day's tension seep out of your shoulders. Outside, the breeze makes a slow rhythm on the shutter, lulling you further. You listen to the faint rustle of leaves outside the window and imagine the plants growing in the night. You whisper a last good night to each herb hanging on the wall, knowing they too await tomorrow's sunrise. You curl into your pillow, feeling the fabric's coolness, and a final contented exhale escapes you. The only sound is your own breathing, calm and even. Each gentle beat of your heart reminds you of the continuity of life. In this moment, nothing else matters but rest. You become aware of your heartbeat, steady as the soft waves of the sea. Each gentle beat reminds you that you are alive and at peace. You let the rhythm soothe you, matching the rise and fall of your breath. Your limbs feel heavy, embraced by the mattress. All the day's cares drift away like clouds at night. You feel the steady pulse in your wrists and temples, a subtle reminder that you are alive and at peace. The final breath is serene and deep. You think of gratitude, for the herbs, for the healing, and for the calm that sleep will bring. Your eyes flutter closed. The world outside is safe and still. The steadiness of your heartbeat fades to the hush of pure rest. You drift off, comforted by the silence of the stars and the promise of another dawn, ready to greet it with the same gentle grace. Slowly, you slip away into dreams beneath a sky full of stars, content to have lived this day with care and purpose. Moonlit vigil, a house call in the rain, a soft tapping at your door stirs you from the edge of sleep. The rain has not stopped, only thinned into a silvery lace that softens the night. You sit up slowly, wrap your woolen shawl around your shoulders, and take the little lamp from the bedside table. When you open the door, a boy stands there, hat dripping, breath nibbling at the cold air. His voice is careful, not rushed. He was told to speak gently. Please. My grandmother's cough has worsened. You nod. Slip your feet into leather shoes, and gather a small satchel, a linen roll of herbs, a corked vial of honeyed elixir, a little jar of thyme salve, a length of bandage, and a sprig of rosemary for comfort. The boy leads you down the lane, your lamp casting a golden stain upon shining puddles. You move at an easy pace, never hurried, because calm is a kind of medicine too. As you walk, the scent of wet earth rises, moss and bark breathing in the rain. A fox watches from the hedgerow and vanishes, as if melting into night. At the cottage, old shutters clatter softly in the wind. You step inside. The room is warm and dim. An old woman lies propped on pillows, a shawl tucked under her arms. Her eyes lift to meet yours with relief that asks for nothing more than presence. You kneel, your lamp makes a small island of light. You greet her softly, use her name, and feel the room quieten around that gentleness. You listen first, the way you were taught. The cough comes in shallow waves. You place your palm against her back, feeling the rise and fall beneath wool and linen. You warm your hands at the hearth, then rub a little thyme salve between your fingers until the scent flowers in the air, green and resinous, like a hillside in summer. You rub her chest in slow circles, the salve sinking, the skin telling you its story in the hush. From your satchel, you mix a spoon of honey, a pinch of ground elecampane, and a whisper of mint. The cup steams, she sips, her shoulders ease, you sit beside her a while. Matching your breath to hers, you tell her a slender tale from your childhood, of a field of wildflowers where bees stitched sunlight to the wind. Each image is soft, each word a pillow. Her eyelids settle, the cough still lives in her, but it no longer governs the room. You leave instructions that are simple and kind. Warm water by the bed. Another spoon of honeyed tea if the night is long. Extra blankets to keep the chill from the chest. A window cracked only a finger's width for clean air when the rain eases. The boy walks you back to the lane and thanks you with a shy bow. You watch him return. A small figure moving through a veil of rain. Carrying a little light inside him now. Return to your bed, lull of the lamplight. When you come home, your cottage receives you the way old wood receives sunlight, quietly, as if it has been waiting. You set the satchel down, hang your shawl, and warm your hands over the banked coals. You add a breath to the embers, they respond with a soft glow. The way trust glows when you tend it. You pour a fingertip of chamomile into a cup. Add water just off the boil, and let it cloud the air with apple honey scent. You stand by the window while the tea steeps. Clouds thin, the moon writes a pale sentence along the path you just walked. You read it as a blessing, though the words are only light and quiet. Back in bed, you tuck a sachet of lavender under the pillow. You fold into the linen's coolness. In this half-sleep, you sense every little creak as the cottage settles. The roof shedding rain in soft syllables. You let your breath unspool until it finds its slow harbor. Sleep comes like a tide, no hurry, no effort, just arrival, a dream of the herb meadow. In sleep, you walk a meadow that remembers spring even when the air is cold. The grass glows faintly, as if dew or moonlight become green. Chamomile stars dot the ground, yarrow whispers with feathery hands. You kneel and place your palm to the soil and hear a murmur. This is the patient you treat without tools or jars, the earth itself. You press your ear to it and listen to roots speaking root language. Not words, but comfort. When you wake, you carry the memory of that language as a feeling near your heart. Morning again, bread, steam, and quiet pages. Dawn slides over the hills in a pale wash. You rise, kindle a fire, and warm yesterday's stew. Thin and sweet with parsnip, steam beads on the wooden spoon. You break bread, the crust singing a tiny crackle at the edge of hearing. A swallow perches on the sill, a speck of heaven with a heartbeat. You leave a crumb, it takes the gift. Then air writes its thank you with quick wings. You open your compendium, between two pages. A pressed sprig of rosemary lies like green ink in a paragraph of years. You trace the outline, the page smells faintly of old summer. You add a note in your small script. Elder cough, honey plus time plus warmth, sit and breathe with the patient. Most of your remedies are not recipes but ways of being. The margins of your book are full of those. The monk's visit, quiet counsel. Near mid-morning, a monk from the abbey arrives. Hands tucked into his sleeves, sandals dusted with road. He greets you with a nod that feels like a prayer that remembered to be human. He carries a parcel wrapped in linen, a few leaves of vellum bearing a borrowed text about garden simples. You make him mint tea, he drinks in small contemplative sips, as if each mouthful were a bell. He shares an old tale, that every plant was given an inclination, toward warmth, or toward easing wind, or toward the deep settling of grief. You listen and feel the room grow gentle. He asks how your patient fares, you tell him. He does not offer correction, instead, he says, sometimes the body needs a witness more than a cure. You nod because you already knew, but it helps to hear it spoken in a voice like rain on stone. Before he goes, you trade a jar of your balm for a thin packet of dried violets from the abbey garden. You tuck the violets into a blue jar, and the color looks like a piece of sky resting on your shelf. The midwife's hands, a shared craft. That afternoon, the midwife stops by. Her hands are small maps where many roads meet. You share a bench in the doorway. Two crafts leaning on the same threshold. She tells you of an expecting mother whose sleep is broken by worry. You offer her a little pouch, hops for heaviness, lavender for sweetness, rose for comfort. Tell her to breathe before the window just after dusk. You say, and to count the blackbirds. You both smile, the counting rarely fails. The midwife leaves behind a ribbon of knowledge, how to lift a tired mother's spirits with broth warmed with parsley and a joke whispered into the spoon. You write that down, it belongs in your margins. The barber's door, a gentle boundary. Once a fortnight you pass the barber's shop, where cups and razors gleam. He nods with professional courtesy, and you return it. He deals in blood and metal, you deal in breath and leaf. When he speaks of a boil to be lanced, you listen quietly and say, if you've done the lancing, I'll do the soothing. He smiles. Cooperation is a village medicine too. The quiet patience, vignettes of care. The weaver, her shoulders have knotted like wet rope. You warm oil with rosemary and let it bloom before rubbing it into the rope until it forgets to be rope. You speak of the river's slow shoulder and how the water carries the day without hurrying. Later, she leaves with a smaller pain and a larger breath. The shepherd, his hands are chapped into a pale geography of winter. You give him a salve of beeswax and calendula. He puts some on right there. The skin drinks it like a long thirsty field. The child with the waking frights. You sew a pouch no bigger than a thumb. Fill it with lavender, chamomile, and a kernel of warm story. You tell the child the pouch holds a night garden. If he wakes, he can smell the garden, and the garden will remember how to lull him. Most nights, the garden remembers. The widow, grief sits with her like a second person in the room. You brew rose and lemon balm and sit with them both. You do not evict grief. You give it tea and let it rest its head for a while. Later, the widow says she does not feel better. Exactly, only less alone. Less alone is sometimes what better means. A slow walk through the year, seasonal herbs. Spring, nettles rise like green candles. With gloves, you harvest their sting and turn it into strength. You dry young dandelion leaves. Their bitterness teaches the blood to wake gently. Summer, elderflower sift sunlight into the air. You make cordial that tastes like bright bells. Mint crowds the well, you trim it back and drop a few sprigs into cool water. Every swallow an easy path. Autumn, you dig roots, burdock, dandelion, angelica. They smell of cellars and lantern light. You stack wood and tie bunches of thyme over the hearth. Smoke braids itself with resin, and the house learns new sweetness. Winter, you warm the house early and talk to the jars the way some talk to saints. Juniper berries rattle like little planets. Cinnamon, when you can afford it, feels like a story of trade winds told by a spice ship's mast. You make a broth that persuades the cold to wait on the doorstep. Small charms, soft rituals. Some evenings, you burn a leaf of bay not for magic, but for memory, to remember that kitchens and spirits meet in steam. You knot a red thread around the wrist of a fearful patient. Not because thread cures, but because courage likes to hold something. You trace a simple symbol in flour on the table before baking, just a loop that means may this bread be kind. Reading the pulse, reading the room. When you lay two fingers at a wrist, you listen for waves on a shore, but you also read the chair a patient chooses. The way their gaze halts at the doorframe. The sentence they leave unfinished. Often the unfinished sentence is the one that needs the tea. You pour slowly, letting them hear the pour. Sound can be a remedy. A very quiet night. The cottage as patient. Once, during deep winter, no one comes. You decide to tend your home as if it were unwell. Just a little. You oil the hinge that has been clearing its throat too often. You mend the rug's frayed edge. You rub beeswax into the table until it forgets the taste of old spills. You place a sprig of rosemary above the door, and the threshold breathes easier. When you are done, your little house falls into a sleep you can hear, a contented creak. The hush of thatch thinking of snow. Night lessons with the sky. You step outside with a shawl and a cup. The sky is a deep bowl filled with star seeds. You tilt your head back and breathe the faint iron scent of frost. Somewhere, an owl stitches a silent path between trees. You thank the dark out loud for holding the world so gently while it rests. The ledger of kindness, back inside. You open a small ledger that is not for money. You list gifts, the boy's shibo, the monk's violets, the midwife's ribbon of knowledge, the shepherd's grin after the salve, the widow's less alone. You close the book, you place your palm upon its cover, the warmth of your hand makes the leather sigh. Another patient in the small hours. Later, there is another knock, softer this time. Like a moth, a young man's breath catches with worry about a pain that is mostly made of fear. You offer him a stool. A story of river that forgot how to hurry and still arrived. You brew lemon balm. Together you count 10 breaths. Then 10 more. Until the count is a hammock that will hold him until morning. He leaves with a jar and the knowledge that he can count again. Whenever the night grows too large, the long recipe for rest, you write a recipe that is not quite a recipe. A clean cup. Warmed in your hands, water not boiling, but close enough to remember warmth. A small pinch of herb, never a heap. Time to steep. The patience to wait. The listening to steam. A quiet place to sit. Where a cat might curl or a breeze might happen. A story that ends softly. Or does not end at all, just fades like lamplight. You title it Elixir of Unhurrying. Closing the day, the book of margins. At last, you return to your big book. The margins hold many lives now, notes shaped like leaves and sentences like footpaths. You add one more. Today's best remedy, presence at a bedside while rain braided the dark. Cost, 1 hour. Yield, shared quiet. You blot the ink. Close the pages. And set the book where the moon can bless its spine. You bank the fire. Let the coals keep a secret glow. Your bed opens like a shoreline again. You lie down. And the straw says a gentle hello. Outside, the village is asleep. And the fields breathe like a giant animal at peace. The herbs on their strings are dreaming of sun. You place a hand on your chest and feel the old rhythm, sure and wave. Sure and wave. Your last thought is not a thought but a feeling, gratitude. Warm as bread, then the night gathers you in. As kind as a well-worn cloak. And carries you to another meadow where the dew is singing a song only healers hear. Winter storm, hearth remedies and lamplight. Snow begins in a hush so complete it sounds like the world forgetting to worry. You wake to a pale window. The cottage wrapped in white like a patient tucked into clean sheets. You bank the fire and warm a pot of thin broth. Stirring in onion, parsley, and a small bay leaf that sighs when it touches heat. The air smells like comfort remembered. You choose herbs that know winter by name, thyme that keeps company with coughs, rosemary that lifts the mind, juniper that clears the corners of air. You lay them on a linen square, each a small green promise, with the pestle. You grind slowly, as if turning snowflakes into steadiness. The rhythm is gentle, the sound a lullaby for wood and clay. A neighbor arrives with a reddened nose and a polite knock that apologizes for existing. You pour hot water over lemon peel and honey and invite them to sit near the hearth where the heat speaks in soft pops. You say very little. And what you say lands like wool, slow breaths. Warm sips. Rest will do the rest. They nod. Eyes half closing as steam braids with breath. When they've gone, the cottage is still. You tuck dried logs beside the fire the way a nurse tucks blankets, carefully. With listening hands, the snow keeps falling. You listen to it without ears, just a body understanding that quiet knows how to heal too. Spring festival, garlands and small blessings, months turn as pages do. And spring writes itself in green cursive on hedges and hill. On festival morning, you string garlands, rosemary for remembrance. Primrose for gentle beginnings. Marigold for good cheer. Children come with pockets full of acorns and untidy joy. You tuck a single violet behind each ear. A tiny crown that tells them they belong to the day. In the square, musicians tune the afternoon into a smile. You set a table with teas that taste like sunlight translated. Elderflower cordial for shy throats. Mint water for tired feet. Lemon balm for thoughts that run. People wander over and leave small payments, coins. A spool of thread. A story about a fox seen at dawn. You take each as if it were the exact coin needed. The midwife laughs near the well. The barber lifts a cup and truly rests for once. You watch them all and feel a simple truth open in your chest. A village is a body. And festivals are how it remembers its own pulse. When the sun softens toward evening, you give away the last garland to an old man who says his garden blooms late. It will bloom on time in your hands. You tell him, he believes you. And so it does. Abbey Infirmary, quiet service. On a cool morning you walk to the abbey with a small basket and your slow feet. The stones keep their own patient silence. Swallows write quick notes along the eaves. Brother Martin meets you with a nod and a bowl of warm water. Inside, the infirmary smells of soap, beeswax, and thyme rubbed into tables. You wash your hands as if washing away hurry. A woman with a knitted brow sits on a narrow bed. You pull a stool and listen until her story grows comfortable enough to sit between you. Her breath is shallow at first, then deeper, like a door that sticks and then remembers its hinge. You make a compress with chamomile and a few rose petals the color of pale mornings. You place it on her chest and wait, counting not numbers but swallows. When she's better, she thanks you with a bread heel wrapped in cloth. It is enough. You tuck it into your pocket as if tucking in gratitude. Before leaving, you copy a recipe from the abbey's herbarium, ink the color of dusk, letters leaning like tired pilgrims. You add one line of your own in the margin, steep patience longer than tea, teaching the apprentice. A shy knock. On your step stands a girl with dark, thinking eyes and a notebook clutched like a heartbeat. I would like to learn, she says. So softly the sentence almost hides. You start with the simplest lesson, sitting. You both sit at the table and watch steam rise from a cup. How long? She asks. Until the steam stops telling you who it is. You answer. She writes it down. The way some write down star maps. You show her how to pinch mint without bruising it, how to tie a bundle with string that is snug but kind, how to label jars with symbols that the hands remember quicker than the eyes. She learns the sound of mortar stone, a low, patient thunder. When the first patient of the afternoon arrives, a cobbler with a tired ankle, you let the girl watch. You speak less than usual, so the room has room for her learning. Later, she grinds fennel and tells you that it smells like kitchens that forgive mistakes. You smile. She will be good at this, at day's end. You give her a small journal with a violet pressed on the first page. Write down the remedies. You say. And the ways people breathe before they tell you what hurts. River pilgrimage, a day away. One morning you close your door. Hang a simple sign that says back at dusk. And walk to the river. You carry no satchel, only a crust of bread and a leaf of cheese wrapped in cloth. The path is a sentence you've read 100 times but never finished. Today you will, by the river bank. You remove your shoes and place your feet in the cold, bright water. Every bone wakes briefly, then sighs. You look downstream and tell your thoughts to follow the current until they tire. They do. You eat the bread and cheese and share a crumble with a bird you don't know the name of. Names are useful, presence is true. Across the water, sunlight breaks into coins and spends itself willingly. You pick 3 stones and pocket them, one smooth as a promise, one speckled like a night sky, one ordinary, because most of life is. On the walk home, you feel lighter and know the feeling is not a trick. Rest is a remedy that asks no coin. Late summer house call, field and hush. The harvest paints the fields in patient gold. You're called to a farm where a woman's back has learned the portrait of labor too well. You steep willow bark, then warm a cloth and dip it into the tea the color of gentle sepia. You lay the cloth across her back. Her breath lengthens as if a gate were opened on a hot day. You show her 2 small movements that invite the spine to remember its river. You leave a jar of salve and a note that says, "Move with rain in mind." She reads it, puzzled, then smiles. It makes sense to her back even if not to her mouth. Notes on fear. Notes on hope. In your big book you begin 2 new sections. On fear, count 5 things that do not want anything from you: a stone, a leaf, a cloud, a cup, a doorknob, Drink water as if teaching your throat to trust the world again. Sit where wind can find your face, on hope. Plant something that will bloom after you forget the day you planted it. Make soup for two. Even if you are alone. Save the second bowl for tomorrow. Tie thread to thread, repair something small and call it a vow. You write these slowly, letting the ink dry into the page the way roots find their darkness. A quiet illness. A quieter recovery. A boy with fever dozes in a room that smells of warm wool and unease. You cool a basin of water with a single mint leaf floating like a small boat. You dampen a cloth and touch it to his brow with a hand that knows how to speak calm. You sing, no tune in particular. Only the kind a kettle sings before it boils, between naps. He sips elderflower. You sit in the chair that complains when anyone rushes it. The window is cracked the width of a thin book. The air wanders in, curious and clean. When the fever breaks, it does so like weather changing its mind. You leave quietly, like weather that approves. The harvest supper, at season's end. Long tables appear beneath a sky that has learned to soften. You bring a pot of root stew and a jar of pickled beets that glow like garnets in lamplight. Laughter happens without effort. You watch elders eat slowly and children eat with the future. Someone sings a ridiculous song. Someone else rescues the melody and makes it beautiful by accident. You are not needed as a healer here. Only as a place to rest one's eyes. It is a role you wear like a shawl. When the lanterns are doused, you walk home through stubble fields that remember the scythe without resenting it. You feel full in all the ways that count. Storm season, keeping company with thunder. Autumn grows dramatic, wind rehearses at the eaves. You teach your apprentice how to keep a house patient during storms. Open the smallest window to offer the wind an exit. Set a kettle to sing so thunder has a companion. Place a sprig of rosemary on the table so the air remembers gardens. A mother arrives with a child who fears the sky. You brew lemon balm and tell them to name the thunder-distant drums. The child tests the phrase and finds it friendly. By the third rumble, the fear has something to dance with. The candle lesson. One evening you line up 3 candles. You light the first and say, "This is heat." The kind that mends soups and bandages, necessary and bright. You light the second and say, "This is light." The kind that shows a splinter or a step in the dark. You do not light the third. This, you say, is rest. We forget it is also a candle. Your apprentice writes the 3 words and draws 3 small flames. One unlit. And you know she will carry this lesson further than you can. Letters. A letter arrives tied with a green thread. It is from the old woman whose cough once governed the room. Her hand has grown steadier, her words are slower and kinder to themselves. She says the honeyed time now lives on her windowsill. And sometimes she makes a cup for the memory of it. She encloses a dried petal. Pale as a whispered laugh, you place the letter in your ledger of kindness and press the petal between pages. Paper learns to keep secrets. It keeps this one sweetly. Quiet feast days and quieter fast days. On feast days you bake bread with a loop drawn in flour that means may this be kind. On fast days you sip nettle broth and call it exactly what you need. The body understands ritual the way fields understand rain, not as command, but as pattern. You teach your apprentice to mark the moon's shy calendar in the margins. New, plant hope. Waxing, gather courage. Full, brew teas for sharing. Waning, let go of jars that won't seal and thoughts that won't either. A field of silence. Once, in late winter, the whole village falls quiet at once. As if a conductor lowered his hands. No one is gravely ill. No one is marrying. No one is feasting. You walk the lanes and realize the quiet is not absence but ripening. You do nothing to it. Not every stillness begs for a remedy. You go home. Polish a spoon. And let the stillness finish its thought. The simple benediction. Night again. You stack tomorrow's wood as if arranging gratitude in a neat row. You sweep the floor. The bristles whisper the day into a small, tidy pile. You light one candle. Then cup your palm around the flame so it knows it is safe. Before bed, you open the big book and write only one line. Today I kept company with breath. You blot the ink and blow it dry. Patient as dew, you slip under the blanket that remembers your shape. The cat folds itself into a soft comma at your feet. Outside, an owl revises the dark with a single suggestion of sound. You listen to your own pulse. Wave after wave upon the shore that has never once refused you. Sleep arrives. Not as a door closing, but as a meadow opening, a path you know by heart, where chamomile stars and rosemary constellations wait with the patience of light. You walk there without walking, held by the same world you've held all day, and if someone should knock, softly, in the small hours, you will wake with a lamp already lit inside you. But for now, no one knocks. For now, the healer sleeps, and the village sleeps, and the herbs in their strings sleep, and the night keeps its promise to be gentle. Midsummer night clinic, starlight and quiet steps, warm air holds the village like a lullaby. Crickets stitch the dusk with small silver threads of sound. You place a stool outside your cottage door and chalk a soft sign on a slate. Midsummer clinic, sit, breathe, sip. No queue forms, people arrive one by one as if the night gently remembered them. A miller with flowery cuffs sits first. You brew lemon balm and fennel, and he laughs quietly at how the steam reminds him of a rising loaf. His shoulders lose their millstones and become simply shoulders again. Later, a girl with a dream that runs too fast sets her palms around a cup of catnip tea and counts the stars reflected in the surface. She gets to 4. Then forgets the counting and only holds the warmth. You move between cups and listening, slow as lanterns swinging from soft chains. Every so often, you look up, the sky answers with its old language of constellations. A grammar where patience is always the verb. When the last visitor goes, you pour a fingertip of chamomile for yourself and leave the door open to the stars, so they can watch you rest. The traveling fair, remedies for stories. A fair unfurls on the common like a bright ribbon from a quiet spool. Banners find a breeze, laughter rehearses once and then plays for real. You carry a basket of little jars, each tied with a thread the color of its purpose, green for ease, blue for breath, gold for cheer. Your stall is small, your sign plain, but people come because they know you will trade a salve for a story. A juggler brings you a tale about a breeze that learned to keep 3 apples in the air at once. You give him a jar for sorists and a suggestion to let 1 apple fall sometimes. A seamstress offers a story of a dress that refused to fit grief, so she let grief wear it inside out. You give her rose and lemon balm and the instruction to sew herself into a shawl of sleep. A fiddler teaches you a tune that sounds like dusk making tea. You whistle it all the way home. It keeps even when the wind forgets. The willow and the river, a grief vigil. By the river stands a willow that has practiced kindness longer than anyone can prove. You sit beneath it with a woman whose husband has become a quiet remembrance. You do not ask her to speak. You do not ask the river either. You brew a small cup of linden and rose and place it in her hands, as if handing her a warm stone on a winter walk. She drinks. You both watch the water carry the day downstream. When she cries, the willow does not look away, neither do you. When the tears end, they do not end, they simply become breath again. You tie a tiny ribbon of green at the willow's lowest branch, a marker, not of suffering, but of having been accompanied. As you leave, the ribbon doesn't flutter, it rests. Exactly the gesture needed. Herbarium afternoon, leaves that remember. Back home, you open a clean book with thick pages that invite gentleness. Today you will make a small herbarium, not to impress anyone, simply to remember how your hands learned a leaf. You press rosemary between parchment, the sprig arranging itself like a little green sentence. You lay chamomile heads on linen, they keep their tiny suns even when flat. With thin ink, you write the names you use in the kitchen and the names the monks use in their Latin. You add a third name that belongs only to you, the quiet name the plant told your palm when you first held it. It is not a secret, it is simply untranslatable. You close the book and wait with a smooth stone from the river. The stone approves of its new task, a day of being your own patient. You wake with a throat that speaks in sand and a forehead that measures a small fever. The healer becomes the hearth sitter. You set a kettle and promise the morning you will do less than usual. Promises like this are medicinal. You steep thyme and honey. Add a slice of lemon thin as a sunbeam. You tuck into blankets that smell faintly of summer fields. Your apprentice, not shy now, only careful, arrives with a basket of broth and insists you drink slowly while she tidies the table and sets the jars to rights. You accept. Which is also a form of teaching. The window is a painting of clouds that learned how to be sheep. You nap under their lesson. By evening, the fever bows and excuses itself. You write a brief note in your ledger of kindness, from the apprentice, presents, broth, and a look that did not panic. Lantern festival, light with no hurry. When harvest ends and nights learn depth again, the village hangs paper lanterns along the lane. Each holds a small flame with impeccable manners. You carry a jar of star anise tea that tastes like stories told on thresholds. Children parade by with lanterns shaped like moons and geese and impossible fish. Their feet make a patient drum on the road. At your cottage, you hang a single lantern above the signboard. Its glow writes an invitation on the dark. If you need a sip, knock. Few knock. That is part of the lantern's mercy. Sometimes the promise is enough. Later, you blow the flame out gently. The way you'd end a lullaby on the last safe note. The quiet arithmetic of tools. You oil the knife that trims roots. It thanks you by forgetting to rust. You sand the wooden spoon until it remembers smoothness. You wash the mortar with warm water only, saving its old scent of crushed green wisdom. You count your bandages, 1, 2, then enough, and fold them into a clean drawer as if tucking in small sleeping clouds. Your apprentice asks why you keep the cracked cup. Because tea has a good memory. You say, when it remembers not to scald, it chooses the old cup first. She nods and writes, old vessels teach new gentleness. A roadside chapel, pilgrim pause, on a day of clear distance. You walk to a wayside chapel no larger than a cart. Inside, a small shelf hosts offerings that cost little and mean much. A tin button, a river pebble, a braid of hair ribbon. You leave a sprig of yarrow tied with thread and ask for nothing but continued hands. The silence grants it as if it had already been true. You sit a while on the step, sharing a piece of bread with a blackbird who forgets to be shy. The sun leans kindly, you lean back with it. When you rise, your shadow looks rested. The apprentice's first house call, a knock not for you, but for her. You hand the satchel over, she hesitates, then wears it like a responsibility that fits. You walk half the lane together, then stop. 3 things. You say, arrive slow, listen longer, leave instructions a child could follow. She nods and turns toward the cottage where she is already needed. You wait on the step, not pacing, only breathing. She returns at dusk with fewer words and more steadiness. You do not ask for the story first. You put a cup in her hands and let steam do the introductions. When she speaks, the sentences come like a braid, simple, even, sure. You write a single note after she sleeps. She will carry this well. Mark it in rain, the roof that listens. A day arrives wet from the first minute. At the market, canvas roofs learn to be drums. Your stall smells of peppermint and patience. Few come, which means the few can sit longer. A baker shelters under your awning with 2 loaves and a sigh that fogs the air. You pour nettle tea into a cup and cup the cup with your palms before handing it over. Warm travels faster that way. He leaves you 1 loaf, and you write a small thanks in the book you keep only in your head. When the rain thins, you pack slowly, letting each jar tell you whether it prefers your left or right hand today. By the time you tie the last string, the sky has decided to forgive everything. A letter to your future self. At the year's turning you take paper, ink, and your most patient chair. You write, keep the door oiled and the water just off the boil. Trust the herbs, but trust the listening first. When fear arrives, give it a seat near the window and a warm cup. When joy arrives, let it stir the pot. Rest before you are empty. Teach before you think you are ready. Love the village not as a duty but as a weather you choose to live under. You fold the letter and tuck it into the herbarium between rosemary and chamomile. future you will find it when it is needed. Which is to say, on an ordinary day, circle of seasons, a soft recap, winter, fire as tea's oldest friend, juniper learning the corners of a room, quiet as poultice, spring, nettles that wake the blood, primrose garlands, patience sprouting under fingernails, summer, elderflower bells, late clinics under constellations, doors that forget to close, autumn, roots with lamplit hearts, storms with companion kettles, lanterns asking nothing but dark to be kind. You close your eyes and feel the circle turn. Not like a wheel, but like a breath, in, out, in, out. Everything you learned returns as warmth to your hands. Night's benediction, the door ajar, before sleep. You set one cup and one saucer on the table. Empty. As a promise to anyone who might arrive in need, even if that anyone is you, you leave the door not open, not closed, ajar by the width of a kindly thought. The cat curls into its comma, the kettle becomes a full stop. You lie down, your spine remembers river, your shoulders remember sky. The house settles with the exact sigh you needed to hear. The last thing you notice is the scent of lavender and the idea that tomorrow is already practicing gentleness somewhere just beyond the horizon. Sleep gathers you like a well-worn shawl. And the night becomes the softest room you know. If there is a dream, it will be a meadow that knows your name and answers you. Not with words, but with the sound of herbs growing.